Yeah, this is a common mistake, and I suppose the reason, I'm trying to work out why this happens. I think the reason is because people actually don't know what to look for, and as we've said many times, all of our training sessions have a goal and a purpose. So it's quite clear before you start what you're trying to achieve today. Today might be a 4-hour endurance ride. Tomorrow might be a 35-minute recovery ride. So it's quite clear in your mind what the goal is. So what we're saying is understand what the aim of the session is and then evaluate it at the end. Did you achieve that? And the group ride might have been, or the endurance ride might have been a group ride where you were meant to ride with pressure on the pedals at zone 2 with no intensity. And you had 4 or 5 other guys whose idea was to make it as hard as possible. And, you got your 4 hours in, so you got the time right. You didn't stop a lot, so that was good. You had lots of pressure on the pedals, that was good. But your average percentage was 0.86. So you actually trained too hard for that session. So at the end of the day, okay, how did that session go? This is what we're saying. Evaluate what happened on that ride. It was great fun. It was really hard. We really smashed each other. But 2 days later, I can't do the hard session because that group ride was not what the intent was. So this can prevent a lot of mistakes of overtraining, and will also prevent a lot of mistakes of not improving. Mm-hmm. So evaluating every session is really key. Did you achieve the goal of the session? And the only way to know how to do that is to look at the data. Mm. And if you don't know what you're looking for, then that's an issue in itself. So understanding more so where to look and what to look for is probably the key we're talking about.
Because just completing your training with no reflection, it will, like he's just said, lead to no improvement, because just doing the training itself is probably step one where we want to aim for consistency, but you should be able to answer that question at the end of each day. Was today's session good? And at the end of each week, did I have a good training week? And if you're answering yes just because you trained every day, yes, that is a good thing. You've achieved consistency, but you could have done 7 days of completely inaccurate or ineffective training if you haven't, one, established, like you just said, what was the goal of each session? 2, did I hit the goal? How do you know if you hit the goal? You need to be able to understand your numbers and what you're looking at and whether the pace you hit or the numbers you hit were within the goal and outcome of the session that you wanted.
Yeah, and it sounds obvious to everybody. Well, of course that's what you do, but I guarantee that's not what happens in the real world. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to get carried away with, that's why probably point number 4, the group ride thing, that's another disadvantage of the group ride is you're just at the mercy of other people's expectations and goals. Yeah. And if you actually have a program and the other people in the group ride don't, you've got every reason to lead that group ride saying, today we're doing this because this is what I've paid someone to tell me to do. Whereas the other people are waking up saying, I feel good today, I might actually ride hard. And, that's going to sabotage anything that you're trying to achieve. And also, making changes in the middle of a session, that's one of the things that frustrates me is, the goal was to do a tempo session and all of a sudden, you start sprinting up the road because someone's left the bunch and you're chasing them. That's changing mid-session. That's at the end of the ride, you would evaluate that, or you would probably avoid doing that because straight away that that's actually a catastrophe, a sabotaging of your program.
Probably the bonus point of this last mistake is not sticking to your training plan, not sticking to your program and changing it all the time. Having a little bit of variation is okay, but if you're going completely away from your plan, then...
Yeah, there's no point in having a program in the first place. And look, we don't want to be strict and
boring.
And boring, but that is the quickest way to achieve. We know that. We've established that in this podcast very well. Yeah. But it is good to have fun now and then, but understand that if that happens too often, that it will have detrimental effects and a flow-on effect. Maybe a week later, it could actually be 3 weeks later from 3 weeks prior where you did way too much for 2 or 3 days in a row. Yeah. And it could not show up until then. And you're left wondering, what's happening to me? Mm. And, a smart person will go back and say, well, that's where you've really hurt yourself there and you haven't recovered.
Yeah. So the first step is having a plan and goal for the session of the week. The second step is being able to reflect on it and evaluate whether you stuck to it or not. And the third step is not changing the plan midweek or mid-session.
Yeah, so for a new person coming, this is what we're talking about. The advice we're giving here is, A, engaging someone to give you a structured plan who knows what they're talking about and actually following it, then doing it properly and then evaluating it. So there's quite a bit in that.
Yeah.
But that is a really helpful tip for people who are listening is this is kind of the most important part is this aspect of it. It's like you still need to get the right equipment, understand how the technology works and making mistakes with, not maintaining stuff and getting injured. They're all things that are going to happen along the journey. But this is something that you can really take control of right from the beginning.
And this is not just for beginners, though. There is a lot of people training for a long time, racing for a long time, still making these mistakes, which is you can always fix them.
But I would call them beginners too because they're refusing to acknowledge that the method they're using isn't working. So that's kind of a rookie error. If you find yourself stagnating and you're not improving, you've got to change something.
Yep.
And we've got a few examples that we've talked about, even at Olympic level, where if people aren't improving, they need to rethink it and change something up so that they can actually start to improve again. And if you're not willing to do that, then there's no one can help you really.
And I mean, to finish off with, this is something that is probably one of my biggest weaknesses in my own program, and you pull me up on, is because I like to play a lot of social sport and sport with my friends and do some more ad hoc things like surfing, and it impacts my training week. And I often change my training kind of midweek based on the plan we set because something else will come up. And you always say that's fine, do what you want to do, but you won't improve at the rate that you could. You won't improve at your maximal rate, and that's the sacrifice that you have to make. And so I am still making that mistake and weighing up the pros and cons of making the mistake or improving as much as you want to.
Yeah, and I suppose mistake's probably a harsh word. It's just making a choice. And it's really not a mistake. It's a mistake if you
don't know.
It's a mistake if you're really determined to improve and you keep saying, I'm not getting where I want to be.
Yeah.
Well, that's a mistake because you actually haven't understood.
Yeah.
The choice you make is determining how quickly you get to your end goal.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is slowing that process down. And instead of getting there in August or September when it counts, you might get there in December or the next January, February, and your race has already been.
Yeah.
So that would be a mistake, but it's still a choice you've made. And,
you're right. Yeah.
And it's great to enjoy everything about what we're talking about, but at the end of the day, if you're committing yourself to, as we've said many times, spending all this time training and money and travel and buying the equipment, setting yourself up, just to sort of say, well, I'm only 50% committed here because I want to have fun doing other stuff. Well, that's okay, but don't complain when you get to your A race and you don't perform the way you want to, because that's the choice you made.
Yep, that's the best summary you could make, is that if you're making the choice and you're okay with it, then it's not a mistake. But if you're making the choice yet you're still complaining, then that is a mistake. And if you're not even aware of the choice you're making, then that's also a mistake.
Yeah. If you can't see that is actually sabotaging your end goal, then that's clearly a mistake. Yep. I don't know how you get to understand that, but yeah, look, I don't want to be a hard-ass coach. I want to have people enjoying the process. We've said that many times, but you just got to understand that the decisions you're making will actually have a flow-on effect to everything that you can achieve in what you're trying to do with your sport.
Spot on. Well, that's a great way to finish the episode. Thank you, as always, for listening. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.